What you need, boss? Some wheels? I can bring them around. I'll get there as soon as I can. I'll get back to it then.
You did? Dumb fuck? That's it. I'm calling the police.
You need something, huh? One of your rides? Let me know. I'll bring it to you.
Hello.
Fresh.
You're my first customer. What are you doing? I just got here. Hold on, please. I'm emptying it. I can't go any faster.
off the Western Highway just before Polito Bay. You got any friends who totally over... Okay, slight change of plans. So, it would appear that some of Avi's paranoia might have been somewhat justified. Our call got picked up, they came after him, and he ran. Now he's holed up in a hut on some small island off the coast, surrounded by about 20 government agents. As much as I'd love to hang him out to dry, he's our only shot at this. And well, it's kind of our fault, so... So, I'm sending you to a rental place on Innocento Road. Pick up some sea sharks and get out to the island. Sea sharks, get to the island. It's only a matter of time before he does a Butch Cassidy the nut job. So, Avi's not gonna come out of his hut until all the cops are gone. Gone, you understand? You might not want to let him know you're there till you've got it in hand. Oh yeah, and you're gonna need a boat to get him off the island. But, I'm guessing the cops won't need theirs when you're done with them. Right?
Never should have stuck my head out. It was cool. Don't answer the phone to Lester Crest. All right, all right. Let's go. Let's get out of here. I see.
You know how I said there was a small window? Well, that window is closing. If you don't get Avi to Page soon, the transponder's gonna lock and all this will be for nothing.
Lester Crest, you asshole! I know his secrets. I know where the bodies are buried. Shoot me in the head before they take me. You gotta destroy the brain, or they'll bring it back to life in a jar. I haven't spent this long in another person's company since that owl died last spring. Man, he cooked good.
You gotta drop the heat before you meet Paige.
Are you a cop?
I'm not a cop, I'm helping Lester. Have you done it?
What?
Has he done it?
Well, I don't have the Pacific Standard Frequency here. I don't have my tools.
Ain't that convenient. I've got some tools. Come on. Lester will meet you back at your place. And don't worry, the transponder will be ready for the job.
Oh.
It's almost like, you know.
See ya.
Hello, this is Morse Mutual Insurance. Sure.
Bye. You calling for some wheels? I'm Johnny on the spot. Okay, I got stuff to do. You're through to your garage. You, need me to bring you a ride? All right, I'll get back to work.
if someone reported that.
Look who it is! Disgust me.
Well, you all look good, hmm? How do I look? Do I look like a model? Like I work at Pecker Woods? Like a regular dreamboat? Well, whatever. We all love banks, hmm? Especially the big ones that take big risks, because they just know that if they went under, we'd all be dead. Too big to fail? Hmm? Great idea. Let's put it to the test. Hmm? This is a little something I came up with. I like to call it bank robbing with a social agenda, if you will. It's something I tell myself so I can get some sleep at night. Anyway, those overly leveraged turds at Pacific Standard Bank, they are going to be hit at their flagship branch. How are we going to do that? Well, it's a little complicated. But there are some trucks that I need you to photograph. One of those trucks has a built-in transponder. And we need our transponder to blip out and don't explode.
Lien holder. I'm breaking out, Morning. Anything. I am breaking out.
what's up? Okay, I'll get you out of trouble. No problem.
Fuck! Booty break. Walked outside to go to work and my car got towed. Fuck my life. It's a woman and it's
Got a bit of a problem. Some asshole got wind of what we were up to. Apparently killing a guy's closest associate puts a bit of a spotlight on him. Anyway, now I'm told they put a price on the professor's head, so we gotta move. Now, is that clear? Can we get going? All right, and remember, the professor's paying you, not me. Not me at all. So keep him alive. Based on this inmate transfer schedule, Bolingbroke are expecting a new arrival. One of you is going to intercept the transport, make sure it doesn't get there. 2 of you are going to be taking our prison bus and making your way into the facility in its place. You'll be playing inmate and guard. Stay in character as long as it's useful, then make your way to the rooftops. I'll get on the radio and give you a path to the prof. Meanwhile, the pilot will have picked up...
And it's plainly obvious that there's something wrong with this claw. What's not always obvious...
pilot again.
two teams. Transporter, officer, you're the ground team. To start with, you'll collect our bus from the junkyard in Sandy Shores. Demolitions, you're the perimeter team. You'll be hijacking the inbound Bolingbroke transport. The pilot's going to LSIA. And me? I'm gonna put up some smoke in a nice crowded public place. We've given everyone an AP pistol and a special carbine, so there's no fighting over who's the favorite. Ground team, when you get to the bus, the officer's driving, the transporter's in the back playing inmate. If the perimeter team do their job, you'll go in place of the scheduled bus. No one will know the difference. This operation's burnt if you attract police attention, so keep your heads down. Got it? Okay, get to work. We got a problem. Air traffic's red flagged the plane and they're scrambling jets. Pilot, if they try to shoot you down, run evasive maneuvers. You got the bus? All right. Take it to Bolingbroke and avoid attention.
Just one, huh? Thought the drug laws are keeping us full. Come on.
Okay, get to it. As long as they think you're an inmate in a guard, they shouldn't raise the alarm. I said shouldn't.
Wow.
Carajo! Down! I don't see him. Hands where I can see him.
So much for that. The facility's on alert. You move for Rishkovsky. Go west along the walkway, taking a left at the fork. You'll turn right at the next fork and see some stairs in front of you.
Let's finish this. Idiot.
almost there? Hey, you're after the sports bikes, not the choppers. The choppers will be fast enough to get you away from the cops, and if they were, they wouldn't be able to turn a corner. These bikes use a kinetic energy recovery system. They store the energy you use braking to accelerate later on. You'll burn the cops and save the environment while you're at it. Okay, as always, don't let them know you're breaking in until you want them to know you're breaking in.
Morse Mutual. How can I be? Okay.
What you need, boss? Some wheels? I can bring them round. It's on the way.
myself, no, I don't have a fucking credit card. Last time I tried to get a rental car, it was racist shit. I didn't even want to give me a fucking rental car. Because it was Chicago. Southside.
Okay, so we're going for the charges. Head out to Calafia Bridge and I'll come back with a POA. lines. This is San Andreas, after all. Do whatever you think will work, but get the truck and don't let anyone follow it. You're bringing it to Paige and Grapeseed so she can dig out the thermal charges. Oh yeah, and that reminds me. Try not to blow them up. Do not damage that truck at all, okay? I'll be in touch when there's a target about a click out from the bridge.
wasted my ammo, dude. Fucking retards. I'm calling. It's not important. This is so. What the fuck?
Okay, so we're going for the charges. Head out to Calafia Bridge and I'll come back with a POA. So, you're gonna run what's known in the biz as a hijacking because you're hijacking the Merryweather convoy. The bridge is a nice, tidy place to get it done. Not many places they can go, but plenty of options for you. You can station people at vantage points, block the road, and wait for them to roll into the trap. You can try to take out all the drivers at once. You can concentrate really hard and try to make the truck levitate with your minds. This is San Andreas, after all. Do whatever you think will work, but get the truck and don't let anyone follow it. You're bringing it to Paige and Grapeseed so she can dig out the thermal charges. Oh yeah, and that reminds me. Try not to blow them up. Do not damage that truck at all, okay? I'll be in touch when there's a target about a click out from the bridge. They're on the way. Roll out some fly papers, start thinking some nasty thoughts, and do whatever you're gonna do.
got him? Looking good. I'll ditch the truck, you hold on to those.
Well, it seems like the epic Silicon Valley drama is finally coming to an end. We finally have a resolution. If you haven't been paying attention over the last 5 days, let me walk you through really quickly everything that got us to where we are right now. Friday, November 17th, OpenAI announces leadership transition. Sam Altman is out as CEO and is also removed from the board. The reason given, Sam Altman was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI. Vague, but that's what we were working with. We also learn in this statement that Greg Brockman will be stepping down as chairman of the board and will remain in his role at the company. But Greg had other ideas. He immediately quit and gave us a breakdown of the timeline of events, essentially telling us that neither him or Sam were given any prior notice that any of this was about to happen. We also learned that Mira Murati would now be the interim CEO, and she found out basically the night before this all happened. Late Friday night, we then learned that 3 senior researchers over at OpenAI would then quit in solidarity with Greg Brockman and Sam Altman. We also learned that night that Microsoft and Satya Nadella were also blindsided by this announcement and had no idea this was coming, which is crazy seeing that Microsoft is a 49% investor in OpenAI. Now, the board over at OpenAI consisted of 6 members. You had Greg Brockman and Sam Altman, and then you had co-founder Ilya Sutskever, who was the chief scientist for OpenAI, and then we had 3 people that weren't part of OpenAI on the board. We have Adam D'Angelo, who also is a founder at Quora and creating a chatbot tool called Poe, which has some competing elements to ChatGPT, which for a moment we thought sort of factored into everything that was going on. The board also included Tasha McCauley, a tech entrepreneur, and Helen Toner, somebody that we will come to find out has a little bit of beef with Sam Altman, but we'll get to that in a minute. Based on this board's makeup, they needed 4 votes to get Sam out. We know Greg didn't vote Sam out. We know Sam didn't vote for himself, meaning that Ilya Sutskever, Adam D'Angelo, Tasha McCauley, and Helen Toner all voted to get Sam out. And remember, Ilya was one of his co-founders at OpenAI. Saturday, November 18th, we learned that Sam is potentially going to get his job back at OpenAI. After an outpouring of love and support from the employees over at OpenAI and pressure from all of OpenAI's investors, it seemed that Sam was on the fast track to getting his role back and undoing the board's decision. And it appeared that we would have Sam back by the end of the day on Saturday. Throughout the day on Saturday, all of the news looked very optimistic that Sam would be back in his role before the weekend was over. But nope, Sunday we learn that Sam Altman will not be coming back, and instead they brought in the former Twitch co-founder Emmett Shear to be the new CEO of OpenAI. So if you're keeping track, that's 3 CEOs over a 3-day period. We had Sam Altman, who was fired on Friday, Mira Murati replaced him, and then by Sunday, Mira Murati was already replaced by Emmett Shear. And then in a huge bombshell, Satya Nadella of Microsoft came and said, fine, if OpenAI isn't bringing Sam Altman and Greg Brockman back, they can come and work for Microsoft. And on top of that, any OpenAI employees that want to come over and work under Sam in this new AI division that we're creating for him, they're all welcome over at Microsoft as well. Sam Altman confirms he's going to Microsoft. Greg Brockman confirms he's going to Microsoft, along with those 3 researchers that quit in solidarity earlier with them. And then the next twist comes. Ilya Sutskever, one of the 4 board members who voted to get Sam Altman out, went to Twitter to say, I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions. I never intended to harm OpenAI. I love everything we've built together, and I will do everything I can to reunite the company. So one of the 4 people who helped to kick Sam out regretted his decision and now wants Sam and the team back together. Sam Altman sees this, retweets it with 3 hearts, and we get the impression that maybe there is hope for Sam and Ilya still working together. Monday morning, a letter among OpenAI employees starts to circulate, basically saying if the board isn't fired, we're all quitting. And one interesting statement from this document was that the board informed the leadership team that allowing the company to be destroyed would be consistent with the mission. The board was ready to let OpenAI die over this feud or whatever was going on here. And notable signers, Mira Murati, the first person they put as interim CEO to replace Sam Altman, and Ilya Sutskever himself, one of the people that voted to get Sam out, signed this document saying that he's going to quit in solidarity if we don't bring Sam back. By the end of the day, over 700 of the 770 OpenAI employees signed this letter. One by one, OpenAI employees took to X to write the same tweet, "OpenAI is nothing without its people." Once again, showing solidarity for Sam Altman and bringing the team back together. Emmett Shear, at the time the current CEO of OpenAI, went to Twitter to basically say, I'm going to do an investigation into everything that's going on. I want to know what happened with the board. I want to know the reason Sam was fired. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Finishing his post with, "The board did not remove Sam over any specific disagreement on safety. The reasoning was completely different from that. I'm not crazy enough to take this job without board support for commercializing our awesome models." So essentially reaffirming that he's going to push forward with the APIs and ChatGPT and the commercialization of the products and not back off on this stuff. And that's essentially where I left off the story last time I made a video. Now, I did go into a lot of detail around why I think all of this was happening, where the rifts sort of were, and my best guess as to why they decided to get rid of Sam Altman. And again, I think that everybody in the moment thought they were doing the best thing for the future of OpenAI, but nobody totally agreed on what that best thing was. But as we all know, that wasn't the end of the story. We finally got a sort of conclusion by the end of the day, Tuesday night, November 21st. So from my last video to now, here's everything that we learned. We learned that the OpenAI board at one point approached Anthropic about potentially merging and essentially replacing Sam Altman with the CEO of Anthropic, Dario Amodei. We also learned that before they approached Emmett Shear to be the CEO, they also approached the former GitHub CEO, Nat Friedman, as well as the CEO of Scale AI, Alexander Wang. Amodei, Friedman, and Wang all declined these job offers, and eventually they landed on Emmett Shear. Now, while this was all going down, we learned that it was not a done deal yet for Sam Altman over at Microsoft.
And are they actually Microsoft employees right now? Like, who do they work for?
Yeah, so they're all in the process of joining.
And in this Bloomberg interview, Satya also confirms that he has no idea why the board removed Sam. No new information was given to him. When asked the question if he wants changes to the OpenAI board, he essentially said, yes, we need some governance changes over there. Well, as it turns out, Sam was still talking to OpenAI, trying to figure out how to come back. We're into Tuesday now, and Sam Altman and members of the OpenAI board have opened negotiations aimed at a possible return of the ousted co-founder and chief executive officer of the artificial intelligence company. Discussions are happening between Altman and at least one board member, Adam D'Angelo. The talks also involve some of OpenAI's investors, who are also pushing for reinstatement. And one thing that came along that was really interesting, remember I said that bringing in Emmett was probably not the best decision by the board if they really wanted to keep Sam out? Well, the new CEO of OpenAI, Emmett Shear, will quit if OpenAI board can't provide evidence of why they fired Sam. This came out in a report from Bloomberg, with Emmett basically saying, I'm not getting any answers about this, and I need to get to the bottom of what's going on. At this point, law enforcement was starting to get involved. Some executives said they were getting questions from regulators and law enforcement entities, such as the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, over the charge of Altman's alleged lack of candor. The truth was going to come out one way or another, they told the board. And this is just mind-blowing here. The board agreed to discuss the matter with their counsel. After a few hours, they returned, still unwilling to provide specifics. They said that Altman wasn't candid and often got his way. The board said that Altman had been so deaf that they couldn't even give a specific example, according to the people familiar with the executives. What they're saying here is that the board's claiming that Sam Altman was so deceptive that they can't even give one instance of when he was deceptive because he was that good. Now, of course, the board wasn't saying anything, meaning that the media and people on X and people like me are essentially guessing on the narrative. Without the board speaking, we're all just sort of left speculating. And the early sort of speculation was that Adam D'Angelo was the board member that was essentially keeping Sam out. Adam D'Angelo is the co-founder and CEO of Quora.com, but Quora.com also owns the chatbot called Poe. And if you're not familiar with Poe, Poe essentially allows you to create your own custom bots and sell them on a internal bot marketplace. Well, with the release of GPTs and the GPT store, this seemed to be direct competition with Poe's bot store, leading to a lot of speculation that Adam D'Angelo was upset that Sam announced the GPT store, which was going to directly compete with his bot store, and that was part of the reason why Adam might have wanted Sam out of the company. More information started to surface about another board member, Helen Toner, who is the Director of Strategy at Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology. Toner had written a paper called Decoding Intentions, Artificial Intelligence and Costly Signals. The paper came out in October of 23, and it seemed to criticize OpenAI's efforts to keep its AI technology safe while praising the approach taken by Anthropic. Mr. Altman said that he had reprimanded Ms. Toner for the paper and that it was dangerous to the company, particularly at a time, he added, when the Federal Trade Commission was investigating OpenAI over the data used to build its technology. Toner defended it as an academic paper that analyzed the challenges that the public faces when trying to understand the intentions of the countries and companies developing AI, but Mr. Altman disagreed. He said, "I did not feel we're on the same page on the damage of all this. Any amount of criticism from a board member carries a lot of weight." Now, taking a look at this paper in question here, page 30 is where some of the criticism comes into play. You can see here she says, while the system card itself has been well received among researchers interested in understanding GPT-4's risk profile, it appears to have been less successful as a broader signal of OpenAI's commitment to safety. Intended as a relatively inconspicuous research preview, the original ChatGPT was built using a less advanced large language model called GPT 3.5, which was already in widespread use by other AI customers. GPT 3.5's prior circulation is presumably why OpenAI did not feel the need to perform or publish such detailed safety testing in this instance. OpenAI has also drawn criticism for many other safety and ethics issues related to the launches of ChatGPT and GPT-4, including regarding copyright issues, labor conditions for data annotators, and the susceptibility of their products to jailbreak that allow users to bypass safety controls. This muddled overall picture provides an example of how the messages sent by deliberate signals could be overshadowed by actions that were not designed to reveal intent. She then goes on to praise Anthropic, which happens to be OpenAI's biggest competitor. A different approach to signaling in the private sector comes from Anthropic, one of OpenAI's primary competitors. Anthropic's desire to be perceived as a company that values safety shines through across its communications, beginning from its tagline, an AI safety and research company. A March 2023 strategy document published on Anthropic's website revealed that the release of Anthropic's chatbot Claude, a competitor to ChatGPT, had been deliberately delayed in order to avoid advancing the rate of AI capabilities progress. Anthropic had deliberately decided not to productize its technology in order to avoid stoking the flames of AI hype. Where the GPT-4 system card acted as a costly signal of OpenAI's emphasis on building safe systems, Anthropic's decision to keep their product off the market was instead a costly signal of restraint. By delaying the release of Claude until other companies put out similar capable products, Anthropic was showing its willingness to avoid exactly the kind of frantic corner cutting the release of ChatGPT appeared to spur. So basically, she's saying that ChatGPT and OpenAI cut corners to get ChatGPT and GPT-4 out quickly, and Anthropic was doing the right thing by restraining and holding back releasing this to the public before they felt it was safe and ready, which, if you watched my last video about why all of this happened, is very consistent with the narrative that I broke down. It was really the story of the people trying to commercialize the product and get it to market as fast as possible for faster commercialization and profitability versus the researchers and the people that were worried about the security and the safety and all of this technology moving too quickly. Now, whether or not Adam D'Angelo was the driving factor that pushed, whether it was initially Ilya Sutskever, which was the original theory, or whether it was Helen Toner, we don't totally know those details yet, but it seems like each of them had their own sort of separate motives for why it would be a good idea to get Sam out. Fast forward to 10:03 Pacific time on Tuesday, November 21st, OpenAI tweets this: "We have reached an agreement in principle for Sam Altman to return to OpenAI as CEO with a new initial board of Brett Taylor as the chair, Larry Summers, and Adam D'Angelo remaining on the board. So from Friday to Tuesday, we finally get a conclusion to this story. Sam Altman was fired. Mira Murati was in as CEO. Mira turned out to be Team Sam. She's out as CEO. We get Emmett Shear in as CEO. He turns out to be Team, let's call it Truth, helps get to the bottom of things, and essentially helps broker the deal to bring Sam Altman back on as CEO of OpenAI. So in a 5-day period, OpenAI has had 3 different CEOs. Sam Altman goes to Twitter to sort of confirm everything's getting back to normal. I love OpenAI, and everything I've done over the past few days has been in service of keeping this team and its mission together. When I decided to join Microsoft on Sunday evening, it was clear that was the best path for me and the team. With the new board and with Satya's support, I'm looking forward to returning to OpenAI and building our strong partnership with Microsoft. Satya then echoed Sam's sentiment here, saying, "We are encouraged by the changes to the OpenAI board. We believe this is a first essential step on a path to a more stable, well-informed, and effective governance. Sam, Greg, and I have talked and agreed they have a key role to play, along with the OpenAI leadership team, in ensuring OpenAI continues to thrive and build on its mission. We look forward to building on our strong partnership and delivering the value of the next generation of AI to our customers and partners." Following morning, which is the day I'm recording this, Wednesday, November 22nd. At the end of the day, the greatest privilege of my job is working with people who are driven by mission. These last 5 days, I saw people across OpenAI remaining calm and resolute in driving their mission despite all that was happening around them. And I saw people across Microsoft remain focused on our mission and serving our customers and partners, stepping up to help in every way. This is what I'm especially thankful for going into the Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you for your resolve and for the work you do each day to advance AI safely and responsibly and distribute its benefits to all humanity. So these last 2 messages pretty much confirm Satya is given the blessing of Sam over at OpenAI. They're probably going to even deepen their partnership. Most likely Satya or somebody at Microsoft will end up on the OpenAI board. And to confirm what Satya said there, that they all kept their heads down and kept working and kept on pushing their mission forward, Greg Brockman actually went to X to talk about a new feature that OpenAI and ChatGPT had rolled out while he was still in the middle of the turmoil of wondering whether or not he was actually back at the company. They actually released ChatGPT with voice to all the free users, and they did it in a pretty funny way.
It's been a long night for the team, and we're hungry. How many 16-inch pizzas should I order for 778 people?
For a large group of 778 people, assuming an average of 3 slices of pizza per person, and each 16-inch pizza provides around 12 slices, you'd need to order around 195 pizzas. This ensures everyone gets at least 3 slices. Would you like to know where to order from, or anything else about organizing food for a large group?
At 11:41 p.m. on Tuesday night, Greg Brockman posted this image with what appears to be a very happy and excited OpenAI team to be back together. Now, Emily Chang from Bloomberg here did some amazing reporting around this and got so many good details about what was actually going on over inside these closed-door meetings at OpenAI. And some of this is just fascinating when you hear how it played out. According to Emily, one of the biggest sticking points was Sam still being on the board. As of right now, Sam is not on the board. Another sticking point was Adam staying on the board. As of right now, Adam is still on the board. So it looks like Sam gave some concessions, agreed to not be on the board anymore, and also agreed to let Adam D'Angelo stay on the board. We also learned that Microsoft will likely have some sort of board representation at some point, at least as an observer. Here's what I found really interesting, is that the CEO that the board put in place, Emmett Shear, was actually instrumental in bringing Sam back as CEO. Emmett Shear joining the talks was a turning point in the negotiations. He asked the board to provide concrete evidence of Sam's wrongdoing. When they did not do so, he said he could not remain in the CEO role and helped both sides find common ground to get Sam reinstated. So as things stand right now, Sam is back, Greg is back, the 3 researchers that quit are back. It looks like the team is staying together. We have a new board. The board consists of Adam D'Angelo, the CEO of Quora and Poe, as well as Brett Taylor. And if you're not familiar with Brett Taylor, I found this post here from Sam Parr. Brett Taylor created Google Maps. He started FriendFeed and sold it to Facebook. He was then the CTO of Facebook. He founded Quip, which sold to Salesforce for $750 million. He then became the co-CEO of Salesforce, the chairman of the board of Twitter, and then the board of Shopify, and he's only 43 years old. Larry Summers, on the other hand, is a professor at Charles W. Eliot University and president emeritus at Harvard. He was the secretary of the the Treasury for President Clinton and the director of the NEC for President Obama. Things seem like they're getting back to normal a little bit, and it sounds like the $86 billion valuation for OpenAI is still on the table, with Thrive still planning to participate, as well as Ashton Kutcher's Sound Ventures also planning on participating. One of the bigger winners out of this whole thing, Microsoft. We take a look at their stock chart here. You can literally see this story play out in Microsoft's stock chart. So check this out. November 16th, everything is normal. Stock is on the rise. November 17th, we hear Sam Altman is out as OpenAI CEO. Boom. Stock drops from 376 all the way down to 369. Over the weekend, we learn, okay, Sam Altman's not at OpenAI anymore. He's coming to work at Microsoft. What happens? Stock rebounds in a big way, jumps all the way up to 377.44. November 21st, more uncertainty about what's going on with Sam Altman and where he's actually gonna land. Huge revolt over at OpenAI with tons of people threatening to quit if Sam isn't back. We see a dip in Microsoft stock. Announcement that Sam is back in at OpenAI. Boom, stock rebounds all the way up to 378, which, zooming out a full 5 years, is its all-time high over a 5-year period. They did have a time all the way back in 1999 where they were doing a little bit better than they are now, but in the last 5 years, this is the best the Microsoft stock has ever looked. I gotta say, Satya Nadella seems to know what he's doing over there. Now, I know it seems like this story ends here. Sam was fired, ousted by the board, seems to have been a bit of a coup. Sam told he can come to Microsoft. No information comes out about why Sam was fired. All the investors, all of the employees over at OpenAI rally around Sam Altman. Sam Altman gets reinstated as CEO of OpenAI. Everything's back to normal, but there's still a lot of questions. Some of the questions we have now are summed up well from the information here. What happens to Ilya Sutskever now? He was one of the board members who voted to oust Sam Altman, but he's also the company's visionary chief scientist. And if this whole thing went down over AI safety concerns, and the board thought that things were advancing too fast and going to get out of hand quickly, how is Sam going to address that? As of right now, the board only has 3 members, and none of them actually work at OpenAI or are investors in OpenAI. Are Sam and Greg going to try to work their way back onto the board? Is Microsoft going to figure out how to get some board seats so they can prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future? This sort of crack that we saw in OpenAI this week has opened the doors for companies like Anthropic, who just released a new, larger model to try to bring people over, like companies like Inflection, who just released a new version of Pi, which they claim is the second most powerful AI right now behind GPT-4. And most of all, what actually happened? What was the board's reasons? The board still to this day has not spoken up. Nobody knows the board's reasons. We're still left speculating. Was it Helen Toner who pushed for it? Was it originally Ilya who pushed for it? Was it Adam D'Angelo who was frustrated that they're competing? We don't know the true narrative. The ex-board has not spoken up, and we have no idea the actual reasons they said Sam needs to get out of here. So still more questions coming out, still more that we need to learn, but as of right now, I'm closing the book on this saga, and we'll likely make some updates as we learn about them in my end-of-week news videos, but I feel like we have closed this story arc. But every time I've said that in the past, I've had to reopen the book and talk about it some more because things never seem to go as expected. But right now, we seem to be kind of hitting a calm place where everything is sort of getting back to normal. It's been a fun 5-day ride, and I've absolutely had a blast following this story. It's been my favorite soap opera. I've been watching a real live episode of Succession play out in front of me, and reporting on this has been probably one of the most fun things I've done on this YouTube channel and over on my X account since I've started talking about AI a little over a year ago on this channel. So hopefully you're up to date. Hopefully I closed that loop on the full story and we have the full picture now. There are still some questions, but the storyline seems to be coming to a logical conclusion. There's still a lot more in the OpenAI story. There's still a lot more in the what the hell is going on with the board story. But as of right now, on Friday, Sam was fired, Greg quit. Here we are, Wednesday, November 22nd. Sam's back, Greg's back. We have a new board, and I imagine OpenAI is trying to get back to normal in some ways. And that's what I got for you today. That's all the news that has come out, everything that I know so far. If you haven't watched my last video where I dive deeper into the reasons why, I highly recommend that video as well. And if you enjoy
Attacks on Elon Musk have been escalating since his acquisition of X, but now it's reaching its zenith. So who and what are behind the war on Elon Musk? Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage to truth and freedom. And what a war it's been so far. Can it be undertaken in good spirit and good faith? Can we keep in alignment with higher principles while facing a deluge of falsehoods and lies? Can we critique and analyze from a based position complex ideas? Why, all of a sudden, is Elon Musk being attacked where it really matters, right in the money hole? Is that the right way to say that? Advertisers are withdrawing from X, and even though high-profile figures are saying they will replace that advertising revenue, we have to think that this is part of a concerted and deliberate attack to bring down Elon Musk. Is Elon Musk unassailable due to his incredible wealth and influence? And what happens when a culture war that's become very adept at taking out individuals finally has in its sights a figure of real significance? Let's get into this story. Remember, we stream every day at these times on Rumble. Join us there to hear me speak absolutely freely.
New at 6 tonight, X, the website formerly known as Twitter, has filed a lawsuit against the media watchdog group Media Matters. Reuters reports X filed that lawsuit today.
It's just mentioned Media Matters, of course, who Elon Musk is suing. We'll look at their funding and how they operate. And also, just in passing, Reuters. And we always assume a kind of neutrality about Reuters. Elsewhere in our content, we've talked about the Trusted News Initiative, and we've talked about how Reuters were established. We'll be talking about some of these ideas later in the week.
Apple, IBM, Lionsgate, Paramount, and ABC News parent company Disney pulled ads from Musk-owned X, formerly Twitter. Musk appeared to backtrack, pinning a post to his account that says anyone advocating the genocide of any group will be suspended from this platform. Later, amid accusations he's anti-Semitic, Musk tweeted nothing could be further from the truth. In a blog post, X said the report completely misrepresented the real user experience to undermine freedom of speech and mislead advertisers. A spokesman for the company called the report contrived, saying Media Matters deliberately followed pro-Nazi accounts to get advertising to appear. Musk went further, threatening to file a thermonuclear lawsuit against Media Matters and all those who colluded in this fraudulent attack on our company.
In a statement, Media Matters called Musk a bully who threatens meritless lawsuits. The White House has condemned Elon Musk for endorsing what it called a hideous anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
This is extraordinary, isn't it? Thermonuclear lawsuits from a man who's able to prevent thermonuclear war through refusing to allow Starlink to be utilized to administer attacks on Russia. I mean, this is extraordinary where we find ourselves now. So how will this unfold? Of course, the times we live in, there'll be some people that watch this and just say, oh, Elon Musk, yeah, I'm sure that he is everything that he's accused of being. And other people will just say, well, this is plainly an establishment attack on a figure who opposes many preferred establishment narratives. Let's find out where we land when we look at some reporting and facts. On Thursday, Media Matters for America published an article alleging that the social media platform X has been placing ads for major companies next to pro-Nazi content. What I've noticed about how the legacy media behaves is they phrase things in the worst possible way, in the worst possible light, placing ads next to neo-Nazi content. Now, it's sort of understood that social media sites are used by a wide variety of people, and to police them to the point of purity would mean there would be nobody on them. Saying that ads are placed next to neo-Nazi sites might just say that on X there is a whole bunch of content, including people with affiliations to Nazis. In a sense, conceptualizing social media platforms is difficult for us because it's such a relatively new piece of technology. Do you envisage it the same way as you would envisage geography, that it has a variety of inhabitants cohabiting together with a wide variety of views? What is the responsibility of the people that own the platform? And specifically, how important is it that from the moment he acquired Twitter, as it was then, X as it is now, Elon Musk has been revealing deep state involvement, revealing the censorship of true information, opposing legacy media and establishment narrative? Do you think that this attack is entirely separate from that, or do you think there's a connection? I.e., do you think sometimes there's a figure in public life that there's an appetite to destroy, and then certain interests come together to work out how can we destroy this figure? And even if it's not as particular and hooded as that, there's obviously a convergence of interests, a set of ideological and economic and political interests that come together loosely. As George Carlin would say, you don't need conspiracy when interests converge. And are there a lot of convergent interests that see dissenting voices and go, take them down? As ex-owner Elon Musk continues his descent into white nationalist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, wrote Media Matters reporter Eric Hananoki, his social media platform has been placing ads for major brands like Apple, Bravo, NBC Universal, IBM, Oracle, and Xfinity, Comcast, next to content that touts Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party. However, according to the X safety team, Media Matters report was done by making a fake X account, then curating posts and ads to manipulate the account's timeline. These contrived experiences could be applied to any platform, X argues. I see, you can kind of make it happen by following particular people, by clicking on particular posts. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Like, if you're a YouTube user or a Rumble user, you'll notice that if you watch like a long video on meditation, then you get a bunch of meditation stuff, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that all the time. You know, so perhaps it's like that. X's analytics suggest that Media Matters repeatedly refreshed the timeline of the account it created to cause X to generate ads near hateful posts. The account, X says, saw 13 times the number of ads a median X user sees. So in a sense, it's a constructed narrative with an intention. Intention is extremely important. If you have the intention to destroy somebody, you can create a particular narrative. You can keep refreshing the screen. You can follow particular accounts. You can reframe events. You can suggest a particular perspective. It's easy to do. It's possible to do. This isn't a neutral investigation, is it? It's like, oh, we were just Media Matters. Let's look at Media Matters. Do they have an intention? Do they have a particular financing model? We'll get into that. Do they have an agenda? It's not like the mind of God was surveying reality and noticed, oh, this is malevolent, this is benign. No, there's an intention. There's an intention to destroy Elon Musk. There's an intention to take out a lot of dissenting voices. I know, because I'm one of them. And when you find yourself in that position, then pieces can be moved around on a chessboard to destroy you. And people go, oh, well, you know, it's not... But there are so many ways you can manipulate information. Look at what's just happened in the last 3 years. According to X, in at least one instance, the Media Matters author was the only user to see a specific ad placement. Of the 5.5 billion ad impressions on X that day, less than 50 total ad impressions were served against all the organic content featured in the Media Matters article, X Safety wrote. We should not blindly trust X's defense of its ad policy. X obviously had a bias in how it measures its trust and safety, and so public attempted to reproduce Media Matters methods to see if we found ads next to the content in question. We created an account and followed 11 of the neo-Nazi accounts in Media Matters reports starting yesterday, November the 19th. After refreshing both X's For You page and following page more than 10 times and scrolling through the timeline each time, we did not observe ads next to white nationalist or pro-Nazi content. We followed more extremist accounts and repeated this process after following 30 accounts. Still, we did not find ads on the timeline. We also opened each account's page and did not observe ads there, nor did we find ads under the replies to their posts. Media Matters did not respond to our inquiry about the exact methods it used for its report, but it sounds like there was an intention, because obviously Public and Schellenberger and those guys are a little more objective. Of course, all of us have our biases, but what it appears like is that they approach this somewhat in good faith, rather than how can we make this seem as bad as possible. Also, it's extraordinary to note the power still of commerce, that ultimately, if you live in a world driven by commodity and commercial interest, you can use that power to manipulate free speech. You can use that power to shut down dissenting figures. You can deplatform, demonetize, control, shut down any individual you want to using these interests. Disney and NBC or whoever else, they're not gods, they're not deities, they're not moral organisations. You can find plenty of things to say about Apple and Apple's practices abroad. Things aren't thinking things to say about Disney and Disney's practices. Who the hell are they to be judging anybody? Who the hell are the legacy media to be judging anybody? Who puts these people in these positions? They put themselves in. Hello, we're moral arbiters. Don't look over there. Don't look at how we make our product. Don't look at our relationship with China. Don't look at what we're willing to do. Don't look at our past. Don't look at our depictions of racial minorities in the 30s or 40s. Pick any individual and go, this person. No one has any faith in our judicial, political, or media institutions, quite rightly, because they're demonstrably corrupt. And this is another story that shows that. I'm not saying that Elon Musk or X or me or anybody is perfect. Of course not. I'm saying, who do you suggest as the arbiter, other than some sort of decentralized, unbiased democracy between us? We can't have these legacy media organizations anymore nominating who gets destroyed and arbitrating who's right and who's wrong, who lives, who dies. lies. What then is going on here exactly? Why is Media Matters leading a disinformation campaign and advertiser boycott against Elon Musk's X? Who is Media Matters exactly, and what's its real agenda? It can be difficult to take all this in. That is why you need to stay healthy. How? Field of Greens. Because there is a fieldofgreens.com Black Friday sale. It's on now and it's incredible. Right now you can get up to 30% off Field of Greens when you use the code VIP. Listen, you know me. I love greens. And like you, I'm seeing incredible results. You can survive almost anything. You might be under attack like Elon. You might be under attack like me. If you've got Field of Greens, you're going to be like some sort of brick house, which will make sense to you at some point, for perhaps the first time. You're going to have more energy throughout the day. Your skin's going to look healthier. Your digestion's going to be incredible. Like, your flatulence will be sweeter than wine. Since I've been taking Field of Greens, my hair and nails, which were always growing suspiciously fast, have grown even quicker and healthier than ever before. I promise you, this will be one of the best things you can add to your life for better health. Don't miss this massive sale. You'll get 30% off your order. Just visit Brickhouse Russell, yeah, I told you it makes sense. Visit brickhouserussell.com and use promo code VIP for up to 30% off. That's brickhouserussell.com and the promo code is VIP for 30% off. Right, let's get back to Elon. In 2004, David Brock created Media Matters to push corporate news media to the left by framing it as right-wing, attacking Fox News and smearing people who appeared on it. Media Matters for 20 years has argued against false balance, which is the inclusion of conservative Republican or other non-liberal voices in articles on climate change, race, gender issues and COVID. It convinced a generation of liberal news journalists to reject the idea of objectivity, to stop seeking alternative viewpoints, and only to quote liberal and left-wing voices on a range of issues. When you include COVID along with climate change, race and gender issues, it shows you how authoritarianism is leveraged in a space that otherwise seems like it's about social equality. We all know there are narratives around race and gender and climate change that are undergirded by compassion, and similarly, the COVID arguments initially used compassion. Hey, we have to lock everyone up, you have to take this medication because we have to be compassionate and responsible towards one another. But do you notice how all of these ideas lead to centralized authoritarianism? Racism, gender, climate change, all are subjects you could legitimately make arguments for, but do you notice how the trajectory of these arguments is always towards more control? It's never towards compassionate discourse towards people, it's always towards censorship, it's always towards the assumption of guilt, and COVID legitimizes yet more centralized authoritarianism. It seems that while these arguments, and indeed this whole mindset, likes to portray itself as being about compassion, it's ultimately, it seems to me, about control. Let me know in the chat, in the comments if you agree. Is it about compassion or is it about control? Media Matters does this by demonizing and discrediting its opponents. First, it seeks to demonize disfavored voices, including many liberal ones, by mischaracterizing their views to make them sound more extreme. The goal is to stop mainstream news organizations from quoting these individuals. Then after Media Matters has done this, it attacks the same voices as right-wing when they go on Fox News or appear in publications like the New York Post. So in a sense, it excludes them from the legacy media. Then when they try to use other areas to continue the discourse, it says they're right-wing. I've actually had all of those things happen to me personally. Because of the way that media's evolved, those initial attacks didn't work, so they just left it alone really, and I was allowed to get on with my life. Wait! Other examples, though, are Glenn Greenwald, Tybee, Schellenberger himself, all figures that seemed to be perfectly liberal, legitimate journalists, pursuing pretty ideologically well-rounded arguments and pretty cool objectives around censorship and free speech, and all stuff that just used to be considered normal. And suddenly, some line crossed them, and they were unpersoned, called right-wing. Suddenly they're appearing before congressional hearings and being disparaged, and their tax status is questioned. Clearly, something very unusual is going on, isn't it? During the pandemic, Media Matters smeared me, at Marty Makary, and other scientists for the crime of appearing on Fox News, wrote Stanford professor of medicine Jay Bhattacharya on X over the weekend. I told the American people that closing schools was useless for COVID and harmed children. Media Matters' business model is defamation of its perceived enemies. Before Media Matters used this strategy on Bhattacharya, it used this strategy on disfavored liberal voices on climate change like Roger Pielke Jr. and Bjorn Lomborg. This is not a coincidence. Rather, this is the Media Matters business model. As such, Media Matters exists to make progressivism more dogmatic, more tribal and more punishing of dissident liberals. And Media Matters Matters isn't the only institution that does this. Media Matters works hand in glove with the Center for American Progress, a Democratic Party-aligned think tank that John Podesta founded the same year as Media Matters. Media Matters promotes CAP-approved experts while demanding that media not quote conservative or disfavored liberal experts. The money comes from the same people who give to the Democratic Party. George Soros gave $1 million to Media Matters and gave $3 million to CAP. Soros gives these donations as part of his broader support for Democrats. He gave $80 million to the Democratic Party in 2020 and $125 million in 2022. Soros was the largest donor to the Democratic Party in 2022. As such, Media Matters and CAP have always been Democratic Party front groups aimed at deciding what mainstream corporate news media outlets cover. They have successfully pushed the news media further to the left over the last 20 years since the two organisations were founded. It was Podesta, upon the defeat of Hillary Clinton, whose presidential campaign he chaired, who helped orchestrate the Russia hoax, which involved the illegal abuse of Department of Justice, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security powers. It's curious how many organisations are often involved in these campaigns, and I imagine if we were to scrutinise Media Matters further and what's happening currently with Elon Musk, you find a congregation of interests that were recognisable and probably include the deep state, but plainly include Democrat Party figures like George Soros, even demonstrably in terms of its funding already. When Trump was elected, CAP fully embraced the so-called resistance, which didn't just disagree with Trump's policies, but also promoted the conspiracy theory that Trump had not been legitimately elected. Media Matters also was and is one of the single biggest drivers of Trump-Russia nonsense, wrote Matt Taibbi on X, a story which stank of Brock from the beginning. The attacks on X make clear that the real concern of Democratic Party elites is their lack of control over the public conversation. From 1996 to 2016, Democrats felt they controlled the elite policy and political conversation through the news media. After that appeared to fall apart in 2016, and as Democrats, including Podesta, blamed social media for Clinton's loss, they stepped up their effort to take control over Twitter and Facebook, which they did, demanding and winning the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop and deplatforming Trump. In fact, that was an incredible period of success, which already seems crazy, doesn't it, that that story was totally suppressed and we were told it was a conspiracy theory and it wasn't, and a legitimate political figure, because he's not to everybody's taste, was deplatformed in a way that's pretty unprecedented. And again, this story seems like the kind of thing that you could construct if you wanted to. We all know that like ISIS and stuff have social media accounts, that across the world there are all sorts of people that have social media accounts, and you could, if you wanted, create the coordinate to make an attack. But no one's going to do that on Facebook, because Facebook is part of the machine. No one's going to do that on other compliant legacy media conduits, because they are part of the system. Elon Musk has become a figure like Trump, who you have to revise your perspective of, because it becomes clear that the establishment has a real strong view on him. And that, for me, is always an indication that something interesting is happening. Let me know if you agree with that in the chat. The strategy of Democratic Party leaders, including Clinton, Podesta, and Obama, has been since 2016 to label Trump-supporting Republicans as racists, Nazis, and anti-Semites. The attacks on Elon Musk's X must be taken in this context. The real agenda behind the Media Matters attack on X is the same as the one behind the Democrats' attack on Trump and the Republicans. Democrats want to control the conversation. Without censorship, voters can see the border is a disaster, the Ukraine war was a tragic failure, and that the Democrats have been censoring them. Independent media is vital. You have to find ways of shutting down independent media, of controlling the conversation. Unique in this space is Elon Musk and platforms like Rumble, where people say, no, we're free speech absolutists. We're going to allow the conversation to take place. What's often inferred from that is these people must have particular political views because they're favouring essentially our opponents. But if not censoring the opponents is favouring the opponents, it makes you wonder where the real problem is, doesn't it? Media Matters is having an impact. Advertisers are fleeing, and it's unclear if or when they'll return. Musk has announced lawsuits, but there is no guarantee they'll win. This is all dangerous because X must remain a free speech platform, given that after a similar advertiser boycott against Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg gave up and decided to effectively let the US government censor often true content on Meta. There is offensive content on X, including racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, and other forms of hate. Hate speech, while inflammatory and objectionable, is not harassment or a direct incitement of violence, which is already banned on the platform. As much as we may dislike it, censoring hate speech is often counterproductive. As we experienced under Twitter's previous leadership, censorship of hate speech often leads to censorship of political speech. And since hate and prejudice are based on ignorance, attacking the assumptions behind them publicly, not censoring them, is the best way to overcome them. I personally feel the very same way. We stream every day on Rumble, and I'm interacting with the stream live in the show. That's the point of our show. And I see many, many things that I disagree with, and sometimes personal attacks. But we have to allow it to take place unless it's criminal, and if it's criminal, there's already a process for that. This is hardly a new argument, and the only reason we need to make it again today is because the Democrats, legacy media, and civil society groups are opposed to the freer expression Musk is allowing on X compared to Twitter a year ago. Putting pressure on advertisers is a way for journalists and censorship advocates to force companies to remove content they don't like. There are other things you must do as free speech lovers. The public, voters, and media consumers should be more skeptical of mainstream news outlets, which today spread disinformation on many issues of public importance, from Ukraine and Israel to COVID and climate change to race and gender issues. It was the news media that demanded that the White House demand censorship by Facebook of true stories of vaccine side effects. I suppose the initial position we have to take is one of mistrust when it comes to the legacy media, and one of awareness and deep scrutiny of the way that these organisations interact. The obvious potential for corporate, state and media interests to align because of their obvious financial ties and the convergence of interests beyond that. This story, for me, is an objective example of what happens if you make a stand against their interests. And even if that stand is as simple as we are going to allow free speech, you will be vilified, and they will use every tool at their disposal, starting with the withdrawal of finances, conspiracy theorists, your right wing. But in my experience, this will escalate into ad hominem attacks and then beyond, in an attempt to just silence any dissent or any potential to present a narrative outside of the one that means that they can completely control the public sphere and even your own psychological space. I think that the end point is they want total control of every individual's consciousness. That's what it seems like it's heading towards. The Media Matters disinformation against X makes clear that giant corporate advertisers, the news media, and progressive activist groups like Media Matters and CAP want to control the information the public receives to control America's political institutions. For that to change, we must become less dependent on the content created and provided by everyone from the New York Times and Washington Post to Disney, Warner Brothers, and Comcast. And we must have great control over the content we receive through social media platforms. And we must no longer trust the news media, a trend which is already well underway, including increasingly among Democrats. Plainly, that's what they are already anticipating. They are sensing a drift away from legacy media institutions and even entertainment-oriented corporations such as the ones listed there. They're anticipating that change, so finding ways to control the space and ensure that they retain control over online spaces, media spaces, and indeed, ultimately, the consciousness of the individuals that are the end goal of this. You remember at the advent of the internet, you would just use it in ways that seem inconceivable now. Downloading free music, communicating in ways that even for someone my age is sort of difficult to comprehend. I was not an early adapter in those spaces. Now, the online world has been tiled over by corporate logos. Unless you're particularly adept at internet use, you'll go through Google, you'll go through Facebook, you'll go through Apple or Amazon. These spaces have now been marshaled, parametered, and are indeed controlled by economic interests. Initially, there was a sort of a sense of libertarianism because they had to, by their nature, contain a diverse group of necessarily opposing opinions. But as they became siphoned off into various channels and communities, it became clear that certain corporate interests and commercial interests could manage the overall impact of that space. We saw outlier events like Brexit or the rise of populist politicians, and this is continuing across the world because people are ultimately, it seems to me, opposed to globalism. So globalism has to continually alloy its agenda to supposed issues that are significant to people around gender, identity, race, climate change, important ideas where there are important conversations that could take place. But those conversations can't be turbocharged by corporate, financial and state interests that seem to have only one aim in mind: control. Control of consciousness, control of conversation, control of your ability to dissent, control of your ability to oppose or come together in communities that have an identity that's outside of what they're prescribing to you. A figure like Elon Musk is a danger. I don't know where this will head, but it seems that in Elon Musk they have an opponent that can fight them in courts, that can fight them in the public sphere, that can fight them on social media platforms. Who knows where this will lead? But I agree with what Schellenberger proposes here. We have to support independent media. We have to be cynical, skeptical, discerning, doubtful about the legacy media. We have to recognise that there are now no reliable moral authorities at the heart of public life. You can't trust the legacy media. You can't trust the government. You can't trust the corporations that fund them. They have an agenda, and the agenda is control, and their control is antithetical to your freedom. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the chat? If you enjoy our content, watch us stream every day. Participate in that mad chat on there, baby, if you want to see what free speech looks like. More important than any of that, if you can, please stay free.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay.
You know, it's like a Russian roulette. We are waiting to see who will come back home. It's crazy. We don't have names yet. Only speculations that it's going to be mothers and their children. It's tough, very tough.
Have you allowed yourself to think about what you might say to her the first time you see her?
I don't think I will speak. I will just hold her and hug her, and I won't ask questions, that's for sure. And I just want to hold her.
That is the mother of a hostage who is being held by Hamas right now. She may soon see her daughter following a significant diplomatic breakthrough in the Middle East. There's a tentative deal to release dozens of people who were captured by the terrorist group more than 6 weeks ago. We're going to get a live report from Tel Aviv in just a moment. This all comes as the U.S. military is becoming more aggressive in its response to attacks against service members in the wider region. Retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis joins us with expert analysis on that and much more. Also ahead, we're going to go through the new Donald Trump dilemma for Democrats. Party officials seem to be shifting their strategy on how much coverage they want the former president to receive. Not that they have a say. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It's Wednesday, November 22nd. We begin with that breaking news. Israel and Hamas agreeing to a deal to release some of the hostages kidnapped during last month's deadly terrorist attack. Qatar, which has been mediating the negotiations, made the announcement last night. The terms of the agreement include a 4-day pause in fighting. During that time, 50 women and children will be released in stages. In exchange, 150 Palestinian women and children who are being detained in Israel will be freed. More humanitarian aid will also be allowed into Gaza during the pause in fighting, including fuel trucks. All of this is likely to begin tomorrow, once Israeli judges review any potential legal challenges to the prisoner release. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed the agreement last night in a statement explaining that if the pause in fighting is extended, an additional 10 hostages will be released a day. But Netanyahu warns his country's mission is not over, writing Israel will, quote, continue the war in order to return home all of the hostages, complete the elimination of Hamas, and ensure that there will be no new threat to the state of Israel from Gaza. Joining us now from Tel Aviv, NBC News Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons with more. Keir.
Well, I think it's a sign of the political and national angst here in Israel that it took 9 hours of meetings of the Israeli government for Israel to decide that it would sign up to this 4-day pause. Now, it may extend. At this point, what we understand about the deal is that there will be 50 hostages, women and children, civilians, released in exchange for 150 Palestinian women and children released from Israeli jails. That there will be a pause in drone flights over Gaza, that there will be humanitarian aid, including fuel, a lot of it, maybe 300 to 400 trucks going in to Gaza. So the deal is now pretty clear. It's been mediated by Qatar and Egypt and overseen by the US. And overnight, actually in the early hours of this morning, President Biden praising those two countries, thanking Prime Minister Netanyahu, who pushed through this deal overnight with that message that you described, Mika, of saying that if just because there's a pause, it won't mean that the war is over, pushing it through with his Likud party and pushing it through despite the objections of the right in the Israeli government. But as your sound at the beginning of this in our interview showed, for the families, the situation is pretty much the same. They are still waiting waiting. We had a chance to speak to the great aunt of Abigail Moadan, that 3-year-old American Israeli hostage who that family hope, her parents were killed, but the rest of her family just hope that she will be released in time for her 4th birthday on Friday. Take a listen.
I think about her brother and sister who both watched their parents be murdered on October 7th. And Abigail coming home for them, for the grandparents, for the family, for all of us, is that one hope. To have her back, embrace her. Her birthday's on Friday. She's turning 4. And to just imagine that she comes home and is with her family is our light right now. In such a very dark and terribly horrific period.
And Mika, Hamas is saying that pause will begin tomorrow at 10 a.m. here. That hasn't been officially announced yet. The Israelis have put out a list of the Palestinians they plan to release from prison, and it is up to the victim, people who view themselves as victims of those prisoners, to go to the Supreme Court if they object to those Palestinians being released. But I think it's partly also just a moment to reflect, isn't it, that 1,200 Israelis and others died in those terror attacks on October 7th, that according to the health ministry controlled by Hamas, we are now at more than 14,000 people killed in Gaza. And right now what we have is a 4-day pause in which Hamas has attained the release of 150 prisoners.
NBC's Keir Simmons, thank you very much.
We're going to get to your charts in a second, but there is something that is so deeply fascinating about the state of the economy and America's perception of the economy, and just how much disinformation can actually move Americans. That it's the whole, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? They believe their lying eyes. Americans, front page of the New York Times, Americans say the economy is bad. Their spending begs to differ. A disconnect looms in the psyche of voters. We've been talking about this for a while, and the New York Times obviously stealing your idea on charts, and we really need to talk to them about that. But they have charts showing just how well the economy is doing, and yet the disinformation coming from certain news sources driving those numbers way down, because, of course, if you have Republicans who are making more money than they've ever made in their lives, and they're watching certain news networks, they're going to tell pollsters and everybody else, oh, the economy's doing horribly, when, in fact, about 80% of Americans say their situation.
Today, we're talking about Hollywood's Palestinian purge, former Obama advisor's disturbing anti-Palestine rant going viral, Israel and Hamas have finally agreed to a hostage exchange. After all the chaos, Sam Altman is now back at OpenAI. We're talking about all that and so much more in today's brand new Philip DeFranco show, you daily dive into the news. But first, this is your last friendly reminder. The Black Friday Cyber Monday sale over at BeautifulBastard.com is live along with the brand new drop. And there's really been no better time to snag some stuff for yourself or a friend. The new stuff is 20% off, and stuff that's been on the site is up to 75% off right now. Yeah, just wanted to let you know as we go into the Thanksgiving extended weekend, we got a lot of news to talk about today, so let's just jump into it. Starting with, have you ever wondered what causes someone not only to say crazy shit, but also say that on camera and blow up your career and your life? Because that is exactly what this man did after harassing a halal food truck in New York City, saying things like,
you know why? If we killed 4,000 Palestinian kids, you know what? It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
So that is Stuart Seldowitz, a career diplomat who served as acting director for the National Security Council South Asia Directorate. Based on his comments, some may think, oh, he's a Trump official, but he was reportedly around during Obama's time in office. And actually, the craziest thing is that he was a deputy director in the U.S. State Department's Office of Israel and Palestinian Affairs from 1999 to 2003. Right, so he at least had to pretend to be working with both sides while apparently having these views. Also, that same video has the two going back and forth for over 2 minutes before Seldowitz leaves. And during that time, Seldowitz Sodowitz threatens things like,
We're going to put big signs here that say this guy believes in Hamas.
and the vendor, whose name we haven't found so far, seems to have the patience of a saint because he never raises his voice and just asks Sodowitz to leave. And Sodowitz, seemingly because of the man's accent, assumes the vendor is operating illegally or in the U.S. illegally, leading to this exchange.
You have no right to be on the sidewalk. You have a permit?
Yeah, I have a permit, I have everything, I have a license.
Okay, but you don't have a visa.
I have a passport, my friend, go.
What do you have?
It's not your business, go.
Oh, it is my business, because I actually know the guy who owns all these.
I have an American citizen. Do you
You're
have it?
American citizen?
Yeah, do you have it?
How did you become an American citizen?
It's not your business, go. I'm born here.
But you're a terrorist. You support terrorism.
Listen, go. I'm not support something.
But yeah, the vendor doesn't have to tell Sodowitz a damn thing, nor would it be unheard of to be born as a citizen abroad, leading to an accent, or being born in the U.S. before leaving at a young age, which can also lead to an accent, or, the other many ways that people become U.S. citizens, none of which are Sodowitz's business. But also, one of the crazy things is just the tip of the iceberg in one video. Just hours before this event surfaced, a different one was making its way across the web where Sodowitz is seemingly threatening the man's family. Where based on context clues, it seems that Sodowitz thinks the guy's Egyptian, and he may be, we don't know. Sodowitz threatens to warn the Egyptian authorities about him and says,
Camarade in Egypt will get your parents.
Go.
Does your father like his fingernails? They'll take them out one by one.
with that same video showing Sodowitz blasting the guy's English, saying it's the reason he's working in a food truck, and quote,
That just shows how ignorant you are.
also saying things like,
Muhammad was a child molester.
but we're also in that clip, at least one guy comes up and tells Sodowitz to stop. With this, so far, we only have the footage from the food truck side. We have no idea really what led to these exchanges or Sodowitz's accusations that he supports Hamas and terrorism. But based on Sodowitz's actions, it seems clear he's just going out of his way to harass this man. Because of these videos surfacing online and the backlash to his comments, there have been some repercussions. Sodowitz has reportedly been sacked from his role at the lobbying firm Gotham Government Relations, which tweeted, Gotham Government Relations has ended all affiliation with Stuart Sodowitz, an individual who hasn't contributed to our work in years, and adding the video of his action is vile, racist, and beneath the dignity of the standards we practice at our firm. And all of this, as Sodowitz, as of recording, hasn't commented on the situation yet. But considering that he knew that he was being filmed the whole time, I really wouldn't be surprised if he just doubled down. And then, Hollywood's Palestinian purge. That's what some are calling what Hollywood is doing right now over the split, over the war in Gaza. Starting with things like the Melissa Barrera situation. But the news breaking yesterday that Melissa was fired from her role in Scream 7 over a recent post on social media regarding Israel and Palestine. Right since the war broke out, she's been using her platform to speak out in support of Palestine, saying things like, Gaza is currently being treated like a concentration camp, cornering everyone together with nowhere to go, no electricity, no water. People have learned nothing from our histories. And just like our histories, people are still silently watching it all happen. This is genocide and ethnic cleansing. She's also been resharing other posts and articles, some referring to Israel as colonized land, and others including a reference to, quote, the distortion of the Holocaust to boost the Israeli arms industry. But then all of that leading Spyglass Entertainment to drop her from Scream 7. And since then, many have claimed that she was fired for openly supporting Palestine. But a spokesperson from Spyglass has said that Melissa's posts were considered anti-Semitic, and saying, Spyglass's stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses the line into hate speech. And with that, Melissa has previously denied anti-Semitism, sharing on Instagram a few weeks ago. It is important for me to clarify that when I say free Palestine, I do not in any way mean kill all Jews, with her adding that she wants freedom and safety for all Palestinians and Jews around the world. And while she has yet to provide an official statement on her dismissal from Scream as of recording, she did share a photo on her Instagram earlier this week that read, at the end of the day, I'd rather be excluded for who I include than be included for who I exclude. So with all this, you have a lot of people upset about the news, saying things like this Melissa Barrera shit is infuriating. The definition of anti-Semitism is being devalued so fast and in such bad faith that it will soon lose all meaning, which probably isn't great for the Jews long term. Alas, by definition, Zionism doesn't care about anything but itself. Also, the situation, you have people pointing to Jenna Ortega saying, she too has been supportive of Palestine, so will she be fired from Scream next? Or, maybe will she quit in solidarity? And in fact, we just learned today that Jenna will not be returning for the new Scream movie, but reportedly not because of Melissa's dismissal. So that is what a number of people have been tying it to, though you have sources telling Deadline and Hollywood Reporter that Jenna told Spyglass Studios that she wouldn't be returning to the franchise months ago. But regarding the recent controversies, it's not just Melissa who's gotten the axe in Hollywood. You have other situations popping up, like actress Susan Sarandon being dropped by her talent agency following her comments at a rally in New York City.
There are a lot of people that are afraid of being Jewish at this time, and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country so often subjected to violence.
There, it's also worth noting what she also said to the New York Times in an article about the rally, saying there's a terrible thing that's happened where anti-Semitism has been confused with speaking up against Israel. I am against anti-Semitism. I am against Islamophobia. But despite that, the United Talent Agency has since confirmed to several outlets that Susan is no longer a client of theirs. We're also seeing situations like one of the top agents at Creative Artist Agency not getting fired, as she technically maintained her job, but she was relieved of her duties as co-chief of the motion pictures department. And that coming after an Instagram post where she said, "What's more heartbreaking than witnessing genocide? Witnessing the denial that genocide is happening." And in this case, we actually saw that she got the support of the agency's biggest client, Tom Cruise, with Cruise reportedly taking the rare trip into the CAA office to show his support for the agent. And in fact, she also has the backing of a group of CAA assistants who threatened to walk out over the agency's treatment of that agent, saying that management railroaded her, but then decided to give up the threat. However, there are also other agents who say that she should have been fired for her comments, as the agency has previously done that to one staff member and 2 clients. So the agent has reportedly since deleted the post and apologized for it. And all this playing out is not everyone's taking a stance. Right? Notably, the Writers Guild has deliberately remained silent on the issue, much to the disappointment of some of its members. Last month, the WGA president also said they would not be issuing a statement saying, quote, "Consensus is out of reach." And that really does appear to be the case, with this issue causing some deep rifts within Hollywood, an industry that notably usually presents a united front on political issues. You know, with all that said, I gotta pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here as we're seeing this situation develop? And then we're gonna talk about my favorite dumb, chaotic story of the week. And that is the update to the Sam Altman OpenAI fiasco this week. Because now, less than a week after he was fired, Sam Altman is back in the big chair over at OpenAI. And all this is just so amazing, because when you think of like possibly one of the most important companies of this decade, you imagine, oh, the people involved have to be grown-ups in the room. They have to understand what's at stake. They're just not capable of the shit show that we've seen over the last week. Which, just quick recap, last Friday, Altman was fired out of nowhere, leaving investors baffled. With then a bunch of OpenAI senior researchers following him, and the board then backpedaling faster than he could say incompetent, trying to get Altman back, but he insisted on a new board, and they refused. You then had 2 different interim CEOs being named, and Altman accepted a position with Microsoft. That was then followed by nearly all of the 770 OpenAI employees signing a letter threatening to walk out if the board didn't reinstate Altman and step down themselves. And one of the people that signed was actually a board member who led the push to fire Altman in the first place, which was super weird. But then all of that bringing us to last night, where Altman is back as the CEO of the company with a new board, and only one of the former members holding his seat. Which, on that note, the current board consists of 3 members whose main directive is setting up a full board of 9, which will likely include Altman, but notably he doesn't currently hold a seat. And as part of his return, Altman agreed to a full investigation into the events leading up to his dismissal on Friday, so we'll have to wait and see what comes from that. Also notably, along with Altman, returns OpenAI co-founder Greg Brockman, who resigned in solidarity. And everything that we're seeing with this quick reversal here is likely to prevent an employee walkout and appease investors. That, and arguably there is a question of, what is this company if everyone leaves? Also, as far as Microsoft, they're pretty happy with this new/old arrangement as well, with their CEO saying, "We are encouraged by the changes to the OpenAI board. We believe this is a first essential step on a path to more stable, well-informed, and effective governance. We look forward to building on our strong partnership and delivering the value of this next generation of AI to our customers and partners." So yeah, I guess we'll see how this plays out. And hopefully we do learn more, because once again, this was so random and chaotic. Like, I can't wait for whatever the Hulu Netflix doc looks like.
And then, are you looking to keep the gift that keeps on giving this year? Well, don't miss the Black Friday Cyber Monday deals from today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon has really made a name for itself, expanding its entire business with their earbuds, headphones, and the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech. With select products up to 50% off, and you can save even more with Raycon's limited time bundles. We're talking tech kit bundles like fitness audio kit with fitness earbuds and headphones, or the everyday audio kit offering everyday earbuds and headphones. And Raycon's everyday earbuds are known for delivering high-quality audio, thoughtful features like a 32-hour battery life and comfortably perfect in-ear fit. I personally find them great for my hikes, riding my bike, listening to podcasts, and all this at half the price of other premium brands, which, I mean, it's no wonder that they've already racked up tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. So shop Raycon's Black Friday Cyber Monday sales for their biggest holiday discounts yet. Just go to buyraycon.com/DeFranco to get up to 50% off site-wide. These are Raycon's biggest holiday discounts ever, and they're only available for 1 week, so make sure to shop by November 27th. Remember, they offer a 30-day free return policy.
And then, you hate to see it, Amazon's Prime Video and Netflix have caved to India's right-wing Hindu nationalist government. That is with Washington Post to start. discovered after talking to some 24 sources about the streaming giant's rampant self-censorship in the face of political pressure from India. Where you've got executives and their lawyers asking for extensive changes to scripts and the removal of passing references to religion that might offend the Hindu right wing. Projects that deal with India's political, religious, or caste systems are politely declined when they're proposed or dropped midway through development. Sometimes even completed series and films have been quietly abandoned and withheld from Netflix and Prime Video from their more than 400 million combined viewers worldwide. And while the pressure has been building and building for years, the real watershed moment for the industry came back in January of 2021, because that was when Hindu nationalists whipped up anger toward the Prime Video series Tandab. And it's supposedly because one scene mocked a Hindu god, but the show also depicted police brutality against student leaders and farmer protests. And so viewers in 9 states filed coordinated complaints with police, and authorities actually descended on Mumbai to interrogate actors and producers, with Prime Video's India head executive hiding inside safe houses and going radio quiet to avoid arrest. And still to this day, several cases alleging she hurt Hindu sentiments remain in the court despite Prime Video's attempts to have them dismissed. And this is she can't leave India without seeking permission from the police. So with all this, you have a former director of production management for Netflix India recalling, streaming executives had to review the projects going forward. You wanted to make sure that you were not making the same mistakes that happened to Tandab. And all this is Hindu nationalists were then given another legal tool by a 2021 law requiring streaming companies to resolve viewer complaints within 15 days. Otherwise, they would then face regulatory scrutiny by an industry body or a government committee staffed by various ministries. So the self-censorship kicked into high gear, and its first casualty after that was Gorman, a satirical show about the absurdity of Indian politics, and all 9 episodes had already been shot for season 1. It was publicly scheduled to stream immediately after Tandab, but then it suddenly vanished without a trace, with Prime Video instead releasing what one industry executive called a makeup film about an Indian archaeologist whose discoveries prompt him to reconsider his atheism. And with all this, you had Netflix taking notice of the trouble its competitor Amazon was having with the government, and Netflix's India chief reportedly telling the company's global leaders that its India office should not take risks or they might also face a possibility of jail. One of the most high-profile casualties here was Indian filmmaker Anurag Kashyap. Right, Netflix poached him after it entered India in 2016, looking to produce edgy Hindi-language shows for a mass audience. And in 2018, he co-directed with the company's then chief executive called the first big spectacular Netflix series to come out of India, the crime thriller Sacred Games. Where the show, which includes hard drug use, sex, and profanity, featured a gangster anti-hero who mocks his pious Hindu father and instigates religious violence. And it was a massive hit, but pretty soon the police complaints came rolling in, with Hindu nationalists targeting not just Sacred Games, but shows like Layla, a Handmaid's Tale-style series about a Hindu dystopia, as well as a series showing a Muslim boy kissing a Hindu girl in a temple, which provoked a BJP party official to complain. And after that one, police registered a criminal case against 2 Netflix executives, but no arrests were made. So the hashtag boycott Netflix began to trend on Twitter, so by the time the Tandab backlash came in 2021, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that year, Netflix suddenly shelved what Kashyap called his magnum opus, a 3-part adaptation of the non-fiction book Maximum City, which explores Hindu anti-Muslim bigotry in the 1990s. Right, and after that, investors just wouldn't touch him. So then he drained his personal savings and borrowed money to make another, less provocative film, but that ended up flopping. So he sank into depression, he drank heavily, he suffered 2 heart attacks. And with all this, him saying, Maximum City was where all my energy went. I was heartbroken, I totally lost it. And adding, why greenlight it, then change your mind? It's invisible censorship. But unfortunately, all of this is really not a surprise given the economic incentives at play here. Right, streaming revenues in India are projected to balloon more than 20% a year, from $2.6 billion in 2022 to $13 billion in 2030. So these streaming giants will do whatever it takes to not lose access to one of the biggest entertainment markets in the world. And it's the same exact story with social media giants like Facebook and Twitter, which were more defiant years ago, but now cave to political pressure more easily. I mean, hell, even the government, right? The Biden administration has been reluctant to take a hard line on India because it hopes to enlist the country as an ally against China. And that is unfortunately the way the world works. Money and power come first, everything else comes second. And understand, I'm not saying that's the way it should be, that is the way that it is. And then, after weeks of fighting and Israel capturing large parts of Gaza City, we have big news for both sides. There is now a deal for a hostage exchange and a 4-day truce. Specifically, in exchange for 50 Israeli women and children being released, Israel would in turn release Palestinian women and children being held in custody. And on top of that, they would also allow in a large number of humanitarian convoys and relief aid. The deal in question was reportedly negotiated with Qatari intermediaries, and the exact time of the ceasefire will be announced within the next 24 hours. Although you have Israeli officials telling outlets that it'll be at 10 a.m. on Thursday. The deal also has clauses that could let the ceasefire last for as long as 10 days, with Netanyahu saying that for every 10 additional hostages released, another day would be added to the ceasefire. Also, Qatar's chief negotiator in the deal is urging the international community to seize this brief window of opportunity to generate further momentum for the diplomatic track. And overall, we've seen this deal being met with praise on the international stage. But then online, it has been met with a mixed response. While some people are happy that at least a truce is now in place, they're upset that there's a delay to it starting. And you also have people angry that, quote, this deal was an offer weeks ago, but Israel Israel kept nixing it, saying earlier pressure could have saved thousands. This is not an accomplishment of Western diplomacy, it's a failure of it. Though there we also saw pushback, people saying the reality is that, Israel was never going to agree to such a deal without first doing serious damage against Hamas. But for now, the main thing that I want to focus on is that this is welcome news unless it falls apart in the 11th hour. Because what we don't need is more dead civilians, and hopefully this ceasefire can last as long as possible. But of course, with that said, I'd love to know your thoughts on this situation. And then let's talk about yesterday today, where we take a look back at yesterday's show. We dive into those comments and see what stories stood out to you, what your thoughts on it were, what your connections sometimes are to them. And yesterday, and this was a surprise to me, a lot of the top comments had to do with WIC, with y'all saying things like, as a Canadian watching the U.S. ban abortions, then refuse to renew WIC to help the increasing amount of low-income mothers, just really makes me hate humanity more and more. As well as, I've watched this show for well over a decade, and nothing Phil has ever said has scared me as much as the WIC story. I'm a mom on WIC. I've been on WIC for 3 years since I became pregnant with my firstborn. My secondborn is 7 months old and on hypoallergenic formula. His formula is literally $40 a can. We wouldn't be able to afford formula if we didn't have WIC, and I couldn't breastfeed. The fear of my baby starving is overwhelming. I don't understand how anyone can support / vote for people who want to take money away from people who need and don't have it. Republicans do not care about their constituents. They only care about themselves and their wallets. Others adding reducing WIC funding anytime is abhorrent, but especially around the holidays is pure evil. Absolutely evil. Also, in addition to that, there's a lot of conversation around Twin Flames universe and that whole scandal. People saying things like, it's fascinating how hard that Twin Flame cult completely misrepresents every single spiritual term they use. Others agreeing, saying, yeah, it's like they took a gaslight seminar. Others sharing that Twin Flames is insane. As a fellow lonely person who is not physically built for dating apps and not mentally capable for random interactions, it's just beyond effed up that there are two people just taking pure advantage of that for money. It's tough enough as it is, and there are just legions of people using bots and now cults to try and prey on vulnerable people. Which also with this, there's the docu-series on Netflix right now. There's been a lot of conversation also happening online, and one thing that really stood out to me was, how is this guy the leader of, what they refer to as a cult? There are people saying he is like one of the least charismatic, cringy human beings out there. There are people wondering, like, doesn't that go against the prerequisite? Also, going back to the comments, we had people saying things like, I binged the Twin Flames series over the weekend. The one thing that kept standing out to me was how desperate people seemed to be to find their soulmate and didn't want to be single. People feeling this perceived pressure to find love and companionship make them more susceptible to organizations like this cult. Society needs to learn that being single isn't terrible, and there isn't something wrong if you can't find a romantic partner. With people agreeing and adding, not to mention it puts unrealistic expectations that your partner will be perfect. No one is perfect, and there's a reason it's generally a bad idea to get married after you've only known someone for a month. But that is where we're going to end your daily dive into the news today. Remember, for more news you need to know and that secret thing I've been doing, I got you covered right here. You can click or tap, or I got links down below. And not like always, I gotta say, thank you for watching. I love yo face. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I will be back here next Monday. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you for being a part of my online family. I am thankful for you. Love you. Bye.
We start with a major breakthrough in the Middle East. Nearly 2 months after their worst nightmare began, a sigh of relief for the families of 50 women and children held hostage by Hamas. In the early hours of Wednesday, Israeli...
All right, we got some more here of the Andrew Tate versus Piers Morgan debate, and this time Piers Morgan is going to bring up Ben Shapiro to Andrew Tate, and what follows is just sheer, raw, pure entertainment. Tate goes off on Shapiro. Watch this.
I have nothing against the guy. Let me turn to Ben Shapiro. So let me assure you, as someone who's not pimped women and bragged about it, that morality requires that those who rape women and kidnap women must be eradicated, not negotiated with. He says on my show, I won't be lectured on morality and toughness by Andrew Tate. His great idea of toughness and morality is pimping women and bragging about it on air, and then trying to quasi-walk it back while simultaneously maintaining many of the same positions and flexing biceps. Listen, everyone should be able to tweet whatever it is they want. I'm all for an open discourse, even with people who I think are dead wrong on a lot of issues. But Andrew Tate is dead wrong on a lot of these issues. And the particularly ridiculous posturing about being a, yes, you're very tough and you want people to make peace with terrorists who just murdered their children. Very, very tough. What do you say to that?
So Ben is a warmonger. Ben has been wrong on basically every single issue you can name. He was with you with the vaccine and every other war. Ben is always calling for other people's young men to go and die in some war. He seems to love it. Then he has short man syndrome, but he's always behind his desk calling about how important it is for big, strong men like him to go and die. And the reason he tweeted that and said that is because when Hamas and Israel, very early in the conflict, he was 3 days in, were discussing possible peace talks, he tweeted, no, absolutely not, fuck them, kill them all. And I said, Ben, as a man who's done his own country, I've had a life. Listen, peace is always worth a conversation. What I said is that we should always be prepared to at least discuss peace. He, because he's a warmonger, said, no, peace is not worth a conversation. You're this, you're that, because he's always sitting behind his desk, he must have a booster chair, and he's always running his mouth trying to invoke violence and call for war. And I find it kind of hypocritical, because a man who's so small he would die if he was slapped on the street, sitting behind a desk and screaming for other people to be annihilated, I think is kind of, it's worse than
I actually think
Oh, that's good. Oh, I enjoyed that. Look, the point that he's making, which is absolutely undeniable here, is that Ben Shapiro is a warmonger. Man, you go back and read some of the articles he wrote and his commentary back during the Iraq war days, the war on terror, war in Afghanistan, all that stuff. I mean, he wrote articles that were like... Now, to be fair, he has since retracted this one because it's so extreme, but one of them was, I don't care about civilian casualties. It happens in war. Get over it. It's fine. That was one of the articles he wrote. He was the biggest neocon hawk on the issue of the Iraq war. And every step of the way, when the goalposts were moved, he was there to be like, I agree. I'm still with this. First they said Saddam Hussein worked with Osama bin Laden to attack us on 9/11. He was like, great, true, let's go get him. Then when it turned out that wasn't true, and they moved the goalpost to, he has weapons of mass destruction that he's going to use against us, he's like, sure, great, go get him. Then they moved the goalpost again to, actually that's not true either, but he's just a really bad guy. He's just a dictator, and he's kind of evil, so we want to go after him. Good enough for me, Ben said. Let's go. Keep on going. And as a direct result of the wars he advocated for, the U.S. spent $7 trillion. Actually, that's just Iraq when you count the interest and extrapolate out to 2053. Another $2 trillion for Afghanistan. So we're talking about $9 trillion. We're talking about war profiteering by the military-industrial complex to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars. We're talking about thousands of innocent U.S. soldiers dead. We're talking about minimum 200,000 innocent Iraqis dead. We're talking about the crime of the century, at least up until what Israel's doing right now in Gaza. Maybe they surpassed in this short period of time. But the crime of the century, and he was there cheerleading at every step of the way. And like Tate points out, look, these guys are hawkish, but they don't mean, give me a rifle, I'm going to go fight. They mean, let's send young American men and women, usually from poor families, let's have them go do the dirty work. I mean, it's grotesque. Let's keep going.
Insane.
I believe if he was sitting and listening to this, he would say that what he's screaming for is for Jewish people in Israel to defend themselves. And he's a Jewish man.
All Ben does is call for war. And I agree. Defending yourself.
That's not all he does.
That's all he does. And calling for war and defending...
That's not all he does. That's all he does.
They'll be very different than genocide. And Ben, like I said, overall, most of Ben's worldviews and mine probably align. We don't align on the...
Yeah, that's the problem, Andrew. That's the problem. And there is one very clear area where Ben Shapiro is far superior to you, which is he never sex-trafficked women. So gotta give it to Ben on that one.
Just set. We don't rely on the religious points. Fine. But our overall worldviews of how society should function probably align on many of the key issues. I don't have a beef with Ben, and I don't watch his show, and I have no idea what he talks about a lot of the time. But what I do know is every time I turn it on, he's calling for someone else's son to go and die in a ditch somewhere for his interests. And I don't like people who are not advocates for peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, said Candace, who's far more intelligent than Ben will ever be. And she is completely right. He replied that rhetoric, starting an argument with me, when I said we should talk about peace. I say we should talk about peace. He calls for the death of civilians, and somehow we're asking why my point of view is seen as abstract. It's insane. Why can't we all just sit down and say the fighting must end? Why can't we do that? Why can't we sit and say, nobody should be dying, let's stop using the most advanced military weaponry on the planet to blow the limbs off children? Why can't we say that without being deemed some kind of terrorist sympathizer or anti-Semite?
Ben would say, yeah, but nobody said after 9/11 that America should do a ceasefire, that America should negotiate for peace. They said, go get him, and that's what we were doing, and that's what we want to do here in Israel as well. That's what he would say. But of course, the response to that is, nothing could have been worse than how the U.S. reacted after 9/11. Every single move we made was, at best, a mistake. At best, a horrendous mistake and misstep. And that's kind using that sort of language. I'm granting the idea of this like bumbling, fumbling empire making mistakes, when in reality a lot of these things were purposeful.
Hello?
Right? We purposefully wanted to take out the head of Iraq and...
Okay.
You know, they had a whole list. The neocons had a whole list in the Project for a New American Century, all the countries we want to topple to get more favorable puppet regimes in there. But he thinks that's a good Like, well, nobody stopped you guys after 9/11, so you better do that for us now. And it's like, first of all, people were protesting and saying, don't do this, it's terrible. Second of all, people should have listened to those folks. So now we say for Israel, and he acts like it's crazy. But look, the fact of the matter is, this, as bad as this is for Palestinians, it's also making Israel much less safe in the long run. What do you think is going to happen? You are breeding more Hamas members every single day. You're creating them more and more by the day. And what are those people going to do? How extremely radicalized are they going to be? And you're also baiting in Hezbollah as well. You're baiting in Iran as well. Because when you're so hawkish and so over the top and you're humiliating the Palestinians, and like there's other Muslims look at that and they're like, geez, you're really forcing our hand here. Maybe we will have to get involved in a certain way. So it makes Israel less safe is the point. You're making Israel less safe. If you ask me, well, Kyle, how should Hamas have been dealt with after October 7th? I think the answer is relatively straightforward. I think the first thing you do is go to where we know the leaders of Hamas are, the top Hamas officials. You know where they are? They're in Qatar. We know that. So step one, pay off the Qatari government and either arrest all the Hamas members or pay them off and then go in there and kill the top Hamas members. So it's sort of like the decapitation strategy. You get rid of the top of the organization, and then in some instances, the rest of the organization will crumble. There'll be a vacuum, and they'll fight amongst themselves to see who the next leader is going to be. But that's step number one. And then step number two is exactly what Jocko Willing, former U.S. Special Forces, said. He's like, you basically do the opposite of what Israel is doing now. You go in there with a massive amount of humanitarian aid. You try to protect the civilian population. You gain their trust and get them to flip on other top Hamas officials who were behind the attack. You go and get those officials. And then, of course, you begin the conversation for a true and lasting peace deal. The details of that we don't need to get into now, but you actually have a negotiation. You could have the Palestinian Authority take over Gaza. That's what the U.S. indeed floated at one point, but Israel's totally against that. But you have the Palestinian Authority take over Gaza. You negotiate for a true and lasting peace deal. And, you know, this is what you do, but there's no appetite for peace, right? It is only appetite for war. And so on that front, Andrew Tate is 100% correct. That's exactly where Ben Shapiro was at.
Insanity. Trump came along and didn't start a single war. He's the only one who didn't. And they're going to come along him and say, make him a bad...
And that's where he falls off a cliff. It is not true, Andrew. It is not true. The idea that Trump is some sort of peacenik. He increased drone strikes by 432%. He kept us in Iraq. He kept us in Afghanistan. He tried to coup Venezuela. He ripped up the Iran agreement, which was working perfectly, and now we're closer to war with Iran than we've ever been before. The list of foreign policy mistakes, I mean, he hired frickin' John Bolton and Gina Haspel. These are the neocons. These are people that are like Ben Shapiro. So I hate it when people, oh, Trump's anti-war. My ass cheeks he's anti-war. He's not even close to anti-war. Who are you kidding? So anyway, we can stop here, but it was enjoyable watching Tate go after Ben Shapiro. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.
In the 3 years I've been on air here at MSNBC, I've talked a lot about the things Donald Trump has said and done and been incredibly accused of doing. So much that it often all just runs together, and we sometimes end up losing a sense of just how bad it all is. I mean, it's not just shocking, is it, when everything he says and does always feels shockingly bad? It's hard to get shocked. So how much worse can it get? Well, for the answer to that, don't just listen to Trump right now. Listen also to the people Trump might hire to execute his second-term agenda. People like this guy.
We're going to fire a lot of people in the executive branch of the deep state. We're going to indict Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and James Biden and every other scumball, sleazeball Biden. We're going to deport a lot of people, 10 million people and growing, anchor babies, their parents, their grandparents. We're going to put kids in cages. It's going to be glorious. We're going to detain a lot of people in the DC Gulag and Gitmo. I'm going to recommend a lot of pardons. Every January 6th defendant is going to get a pardon.
Scary, dystopian stuff, I think we can all agree, but also the scary stuff you hear a lot out of the thirsty Trump devotees who desperately want to make 2025 authoritarianism happen. So who is that guy who thinks it'll be glorious to put kids in cages, I hear you ask? Just some rando with a podcast trying to draw more crypto and survival seed advertisers? Sadly, no. He's Mike Davis, a conservative lawyer and activist with a serious inside track to a top job under a President Trump 47 at the Justice Department. A top job with power over prosecutors and investigators and armed agents. In fact, that interview with him I just showed you, that was a job audition of sorts. Let me start the tape a few seconds earlier.
During my 3-week reign of terror as Trump acting Attorney General, before I get chased out of town with my Trump pardon, I will rain hell on Washington, D.C. We've talked about this, Ben. I have 5 lists ready to go, and they're growing. List number 1, we're going to fire. We're going to fire a lot of people.
Okay, but still, there are a lot of random white guys with law degrees out there going full MAGA and trying to ingratiate themselves with Donald Trump ahead of a possible second term. Thinking of you, Jeffrey Clark. But Mike Davis is different. For one thing, he's top of mind in Trump world for the top legal job.
There's a couple people that you can put in positions like that. You know, we talk about Mike Davis as Attorney General. Like Mike Davis, Kash Patel be like in around the AGs.
And he got a shout out in a recent TV appearance by Steve Bannon.
You think somebody who's struggling? You think somebody that's struggling right now in the economy cares about firing random deep state people, indicting Joe Biden's brother, deporting people?
Did I say that's all they're going to do? That's Mike Davis will probably be the Attorney General.
Now, Mike Davis is on their radar, not in spite of, but almost certainly because of his unhinged rhetoric, calling kids in cages glorious barely scratches the surface of his far-right, frequently racist statements. I want to come to those in a moment. But there's something else big here, because Mike Davis is exactly what the Trump administration lacked last time around. A skilled, even competent veteran of Beltway legal politics and right-wing causes, one who seems keen to transform Trump's darkest fascist impulses into an actual policy agenda. In fact, he's a microcosm of the mainstream GOP establishment's moves to the far right in the age of Trump. As former GOP operative turned never-Trumper Tim Miller put it recently in Forward, Mike Davis is not some random caddy whom Donald Trump drummed up at Bedminster to issue foreign policy decrees via tweet. He's a guy who has had serious jobs for the Bush DOJ, Newt Gingrich, and Judge Gorsuch.
You fucker!
I ran Justice Gorsuch's confirmation effort from the outside. I ran Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation effort from the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Yes, Mike Davis went from helping confirm Neil Gorsuch to becoming a law clerk for Justice Gorsuch at the age of 39, to then becoming chief counsel for nominations on the same GOP-run Senate Judiciary Committee that got Gorsuch confirmed. A real right-wing revolving door. On that committee, Davis crucially played a major role in helping stack federal courts with hundreds of hard right, but far right as well, Trump-nominated judges, including, yes, Brett Kavanaugh, whose own Supreme Court nomination was held up by serious allegations of sexual assault and alcohol abuse. Allegations Mike Davis says he helped to disprove.
We tracked down every lead. We had 6 allegations come in, essentially accusing Justice Kavanaugh of being a serial gang rapist. We took all of these allegations seriously, and we documented what we did in this 414-page report.
What Davis fails to mention is that he and his boss on the Judiciary Committee, GOP Senator Chuck Grassley, basically and conveniently outsourced everything to a rushed FBI investigation that we would later learn didn't investigate thousands of tips that it got about Kavanaugh, but simply forwarded them to the Trump White House. A fact FBI Director Christopher Wray confirmed in Senate testimony last year. Something else Davis didn't mention, that while he was shepherding the supposedly impartial investigation into the accusations against Kavanaugh, he was also tweeting, quote, "unfazed and determined. We will confirm Judge Kavanaugh." After an outcry, Davis deleted his tweet, but try and guess the name of his current email newsletter. That's right, Unfazed and Determined. Yes, he likes to troll. After helping pack the court with conservative ideologues, Davis founded the Article 3 Foundation to bring, in his words, brass knuckles to future judicial fights. He's been a fixture on Fox ever since, though he spent most of his time last year complaining about big tech. Guess why?
I've been kicked off Twitter 5 times for hatred.
Yep, Davis was suspended for frequent violations of Twitter's old pre-Elon Musk terms of service, for saying things like Joe Biden is making it easier for illegal immigrants to commit crimes, for suggesting a CNN reporter was the gimp in Pulp Fiction twice, and for calling to imprison Black Lives Matter protesters, calling them woke Al-Qaeda and domestic terrorists who've been terrorizing American cities for 8 months. Fortunately for Davis, Elon Musk's Twitter, and of course Fox, let him speak his mind.
Yeah, maybe it's not such a good idea to import people from third world Marxist hellholes who hate America. We're going to become a third world Marxist hellhole very quickly. It is only illegal to object to elections in third world Marxist hellholes, and now in New York, D.C., and Atlanta.
Maybe it's just a coincidence that he calls American cities with large minority populations third world hellholes. Surely he's not trying to blow any dog whistles there.
This is clearly a political prosecution by Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Soros-funded Manhattan DA, Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He's a George Soros-funded puppet prosecutor. You certainly can't trust these George Soros-funded prosecutors.
Still too subtle for you? Then move to Twitter, where Davis has written, quote, "The violent black underclass is a danger to America. We must resume the mass incarceration of these thugs. In the meantime, Americans must arm up. These monsters will kill." Davis has in fact told followers to arm up at least 16 times on Twitter, to arm up against the violent black underclass, against Soros-backed DAs, against county attorneys, against Democrats in general. All while tweeting the individual names of journalists, college professors, and politicians he would send to the gulag, including saying that he would throw Tim Miller, that never-Trump Republican you just saw interviewing Bannon, who is a gay man, quote, in the women's cell block in the DC gulag. In fact, that 5-point plan of his that I played for you earlier, he doubled down on it. When someone else summarized his authoritarian agenda, he retweeted it and added, "Fact check true," and even added that he would also target some fellow Republicans with his purges. But then later he backtracked, saying it was all hyperbole. Quote, "Love that these left-wing zombies actually believe and are terrified about my intentionally inflammatory rhetoric." Davis does that a lot. When he gets called on his overt fascism, he says it's all in jest. He's just cleverly making repeated jokes about putting his enemies in gulags or arming against black people. Quote, "I can't stop laughing. They actually think I'm serious, and they're actually scared." He's just exaggerating for his crowd. Exaggerating to Fox audiences about Soros-backed DAs and Democrat Marxist hellholes of New York, Atlanta, and Washington. Exaggerating. Do you think that's why Donald Trump Jr. and Steve Bannon want him in the next Trump cabinet? For his exaggerating? Do you think Donald Trump likes this guy for his metaphorical fascism? As Tim Miller puts it, racist demagoguery, conspiratorial thinking, promises for retribution against enemies. This is Trump's stated agenda for 2024, and people like Mike Davis stand ready and willing to execute it. Remember, the 3 attorneys general who Trump employed during his first term pre the election were either establishment conservatives who could only take his authoritarianism so far, hey Jeff Sessions, hey Bill Barr, or were just incompetent yes men. Looking at you, Matt Whitaker. Mike Davis is super authoritarian and, as we've discussed, super competent. That makes him super dangerous. But he's just one guy, right? Well, not exactly.
Hello.
Because there may be
What can I
up
do
to
for you?
53,999
Okay then.
others.
Wow.
This week, new Axios
Weirdo.
reporting revealed that, quote, hundreds of people are spending tens of millions of dollars to install a pre-vetted, pro-Trump army of up to 54,000 loyalists across government to rip off the restraints imposed on the previous 46 presidents. Yes, you heard that right. Trump's allies are filling up a database with tens of thousands of his loyalists, eager for a job. They're being screened, but not for experience or qualifications or, competence. They're being screened for right-wing political purity. For example, do they agree or disagree with statements like, quote, the U.S. has the right to select immigrants based on country of origin? In other words, they're looking to fill the United States government with far-right ditto heads ready to push Trump's agenda as far as they possibly can. Remember Don Jr. tempting Mike Davis as Attorney General? Well, here's who else he's suggesting for his father's second administration.
Laura Loomer's turned out to be a warrior for your dad. Listen, she's a bulldog, man. I'll say that. She gets after it. I'd love to see her press secretary just to watch DC just explode.
Yes, Laura Loomer, far-right conspiracy theorist, proud Islamophobe, self-proclaimed white nationalist, as press secretary. But what could Laura Loomer, Mike Davis, and these die-hard Trump minions do exactly? Well, the New York Times gave us a hint over the weekend. Quote, to ease the strain on ICE detention facilities, Mr. Trump wants to build huge camps to detain people while their cases are processed and they await deportation flights. Huge camps where they'll confine large concentrations of foreigners. If only history had a name for camps like that.
I'm on
And
the
as
clock.
reported
What
by the
you want?
Washington
Some
Post,
wheels?
Team Trump have a plan to use the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military
I'll bring it
against
to you.
protest.
I'll get back to it then.
The Post says Trump has also talked about prosecuting his critics like President Biden or his own former Attorney General, Bill Barr. Hey, maybe he can ask AG Mike Davis to send them to Gitmo. Look, the former and possibly next president of the United States and his acolytes are openly threatening to unleash an American fascism on the American people. But you don't have to just read or believe the reporting in Axios or the Times or the Post. The man himself isn't hiding just how authoritarian and, I'm sorry, Nazi-like he plans to be.
In honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
Vermin. As some in our media pointed out, Trump's vermin line is his call to stop the, quote, threat from within, were callbacks to Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler and fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. And get this, when asked about that vile fascist rhetoric, a Trump campaign spokesman told the Washington Post, quote, those who try to make that ridiculous assertion are clearly snowflakes. And, wait for it, their entire existence will be crushed when President Trump returns to the White House. Ah, yes, the death of irony, another hallmark of fascism. Joining me now, Tara Setmeyer, former Republican communications director on Capitol Hill, who has since left the GOP. She's now a senior advisor to the anti-Trump Lincoln Project. And Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI assistant director for counterintelligence, now an MSNBC national security contributor. Thank you both for coming back on the show. Tara, people like Mike Davis, were they always this way and Trump just brought out the worst in them, or are they just faking it now to get MAGA jobs? I mean, we're talking about an ex-Bush DOJ guy who's now full-blown MAGA. What does that tell us about the direction of the Republican Party that you left?
You know, Mehdi, I often ask myself that question because I spent 27 years in the Republican Party, and there are people that were colleagues of mine, friends of mine, who I never would have thought would have turned into these rabid MAGA loyalists that are spewing this type of garbage. I mean, it has shocked me the depths that some of these people have gone to. And it's made me question that. Were they always that way and I just didn't see it? Or was this an act? And I think for some people, it was an opportunity, it was an act for them to become, you know, go from the C list to now they're in the A list, they're in the C suites of politics now, they're making lots of money, and I think it was an act. For some of them, I think that there is a really large aggrieved part of this country and that are using this as an opportunity to take all of the lowest common denominator, worst parts of themselves, and now that has been platformed and it's been mainstreamed and they've been empowered to be this way. I think it's something that we as a society need to examine, how that's been allowed for how we've missed this for so long and how we get through this. But I've got to tell you, the Mike Davises of the world, he's not alone. There are lots of them. And the fact that he's out here communicating what they want to do and using the terms that he's using, gulag, final battles, reign of terror, punching back. I mean, the violent rhetoric is part of the authoritarian playbook. The fascism is the point now. And we cannot allow the American people to be desensitized to it. Just because he doesn't come across initially as one of the kookier ones, the kooks are now competent. And that, I think, runs the risk of desensitizing people to the absolute dangerous rhetoric that they're using that they're serious about. And this country could lose its democracy over it. This is very, very serious, dangerous stuff.
It is very serious. It is very dangerous. The kooks are competent is exactly why we wanted to start the show on this topic today. Frank, over the weekend, Trump made it clear what he plans to do with his political opponents, with the aid of all the competent kooks, if re-elected. Have a listen.
I'll be sitting there and they'll say, sir, there's a Democrat who's surging. I say, really? Well, you know, they did it to me. Now I can do it to them. Indict him for walking across the street in an improper manner. And when he gets indicted, he'll go right down the tubes.
I mean, Frank, you're hearing it from the man himself. He plans on going after anyone that poses a threat to him, weaponizing the DOJ in the way it hasn't been done so far. It's all projection. How serious should we take this? How scared should we be if Donald Trump has a Mike Davis in the DOJ willing to carry out his boss's fascist instincts in a way that even Bill Barr refused to?
We've got to be very, very concerned and take action here because, as we may recall, there were people in the first Trump administration that literally saved the day. We may not like those people very much, but people like Mike Pence, people like even Bill Barr and others were able to talk Trump out of doing things that literally were an existential threat to democracy. Rest assured, with the strategy and planning we're hearing about right now, those people simply will not be present. They will not have access. And instead, you'll have the Mike Davises of the world who are quite skilled in Washington's ways and can do it even better than Trump tried to do. So people might ask you, Mehdi, hey, why is Frank, the national security guy, on talking about what sounds like politics? This long ago stopped being about politics for me and for everyone else. Rest assured, this is a national security matter for me and should be for everybody because it does pose an existential threat to democracy. Think about what the FBI and U.S. attorneys' offices around the country would look like under the next Trump administration. That's already telling us they will fire people at will. They will get rid of civil service protection. So if, let's say, the head of an FBI office pursues a corrupt